me today. Happy spring, yay! We finally have spring, and hopefully the weather will start acting like it. It's a beautiful 69 degrees here today in SoCal, and the sun is shining, the wind is not bad, and it's actually a beautiful day, and I just was so happy and excited and just felt so at peace and warm in my heart after Bible study today. And I thought, gosh, you know, what a beautiful day. And it's the first day of spring. And I just wanted to get up in front of you guys today and throw up a quick video about making sun catchers. So welcome. That's what we're going to jump into. And guys, this is super simple. Now I'll put up several. Sorry, I'm so excited. I'm having such a great day, and I sure hope you guys are all having a beautiful, blessed, great Sunday yourselves. So let's jump into it, guys. All you're going to need, friends, is a ruler. You're going to need just, for this particular style I'm going to show you, we're going to need one crimp bead. We're going to need a pair of scissors. You can take any beads out of your stash that you want, preferably sparkly, transparent, shiny, something like that, but really any beads will do, as you'll see, and I'll pull some of mine up at the end and show you. And then you can use either your crimper tool or a pair of chain nose to smush your crimp. Either one's going to work. I'm going to use my regular Mighty Crimpers today. So what we're going to do is just simply feed on your pattern. Okay? Just feed them right on the monofilament. Super easy. And then I had a purple and then a blue. Okay, and so that's what we have. So there's the pattern of my sun catcher, right? And now what you are going to do is we have the bottom and we have the top, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take this, we're going to be mindful to not fling our beads off the other side, right? Which is why we need a bead stopper. Let me reach across. Sorry, guys. Let me grab a clip here. Okay. Let me just clip that on there. So just clip that on the top. So what we're going to do is we're wanting to take the end of our monofilament here, okay, at the bottom of our pattern, okay, and we're going to go up and around and over the bead and back through, okay? So do you see what I'm doing here? So I'm at the bottom of my, the very big bottom bead, and I'm taking the end of the monofilament and I'm going up and around over the bead and back down, okay? And now you're going to kind of hold that and you're going to pull all the slack up because you want this long piece. We're going to feed it all the way back up. So we're going to want to have a nice significant amount of our wire. And so just like that. Do you see how we did that? Right? So now do you see, I know you can barely see it, but right here is that monofilament. Let me turn it right side up so you can see that this is the top and this is the bottom. And so we fed that monofilament back up through this large bead, back down, and now I have the majority of my monofilament right here. Okay, and now we went ahead and we've got a little piece here, but you can't even see it. And now what we're going to do with this piece, okay, is we're going to skip now over this bead, and we're going to start feeding it through each bead all the way back up to the top. Okay, so I'm going to grab my monofilament here, and I'm just going to feed it right through each of the beads back up to the top. Okay, there's 3, and then there's that one. And then 1, 2, and I'm just pulling it up And then there's my last top bead right there. Okay? And so that's what we did. And so now we've got both pieces up at the top here. We're going to be most mindful about the piece. That's why we kind of want to just keep a bead stopper on that other piece for a minute, because we just need to be paying attention to our piece that we fed back up through. That's how we're going to make our loop now. Okay? So now this is what we have. Okay? And so you can see my two little, hopefully my monofilament pieces, you can see it there. They were kind of on separate sides of the bead. I'm just going to put them together right there. I mean, it's so subtle, you can't even see it in this clear stuff. You really can't. I'm just being fussy with it. Anyway, so now what we're going to do is we're going to grab a crimp, and I'm using well, I was until I just flung it out of my hand. I am using a 2mm crimp bead today. There it is. Okay, come back. There you go. And so now what we're going to do, and I can see that my monofilament, that the side that I did not string back up is significantly shorter, right? So I know which one is which here that I'm working with. So it's my longer one that I'm most concerned about to make my loop. But the first, before we do that, is we're going to grab a crimp and feed it through both pieces of this monofilament at the top. So feed your crimp through both and let your crimp go ahead and drop. Now you can put your bead clip back on that small piece, okay, because we're going to end up getting rid of it. We don't need it anymore. We just needed it for the crimping. And now we take that top piece, okay, and we are going to feed it back down through the crimp and the first two beads. Let's get it lined up. Go on. Go in the second bead, please. Thank you. Are you going? Where are you at? And I'm gonna grab my tail. There it is. Okay. And then I'll grab my tail. And I'm gonna keep a hold to this loop. Now you can also grab your pliers. It's very handy, okay? If you want, okay? Because what we're gonna wanna do now, guys, is we need to be mindful of how big we want our loop to be, okay? And at the same time, we need to make sure that this other strand over here is pulled tight, because that is what's holding this down here snug, okay? And so, as you can see, that's what it's like kind of struggling with. So I'm going to get rid of my clip because I know what strand I'm working with here. And so let me put it down on the mat and show you here. So I've got that piece. So I'm pulling this one up. Now I'm just going to pull my beads down, and I'm grabbing that tail, and I'm pushing all of my beads down to where they're all nice and snug there. And now I'm going to decide how big I want my loop. And so I'm just kind of pushing and pulling, and I think that's about big enough for me. You know, you don't need a very big loop, by the way, just FYI. You don't, because you can hang these on even a much smaller loop than that. In fact, I am going to make mine a little bit smaller. So I can pull that tail and make that loop just a little bit smaller. Okay, very good. And now we're going to go ahead and crimp. And so we're going to go ahead and crimp the regular way we crimp. And then we are going to fold it in half. And then I kind of go around a couple of times and fold that crimp. Just because I don't know, the monofilament, it's kind of slippery. And then you see what happened is my crimp is wanting to get lost in my bead. And so what we can do is we can avoid that by happening by just adjusting how much we're folding. That should be good. And now what you're going to do is that top piece, we're going to go ahead and just use our pair of scissors and we're going to cut that off. And then we can cut the tail off in between here, just like we do our jewelry. And there we go. That's what we made. Cute little sun catcher. Look how pretty that is. Isn't that beautiful? Super good. And you can always do your tug test. I'm pulling out, I mean, that crimp, it's not going anywhere. That's why we use the 3 pieces. And again, down here, you really can barely even see that monofilament there. And so we made a fun sun catcher. Yay! I'm so happy. I've been really excited to get this up for you guys. Examples, and there's lots of different styles and ways to make these. So I'll show you a couple different versions. So here's another one that I made. Again, using that large 20 millimeter, and I use this big, huge clear bead, and then these, I even just use some regular purple beads, but they're kind of clear, and then some rondelles from my stash, and, you know, that will sparkle and shine. And then this was my favorite, because, of course, you know I love blue. And here's a different way I did it with this one that slides. So I put the smaller ones, and I put a big space in between, and I crimped it here and at the top. And that's my little starfish. And these beautiful big opaque beads I had in my stash. So that's my blue and clear. And that one is 5.5 inches. And I probably need to add a crimp right there. But it doesn't bother me that, you know, if it goes up and it doesn't bother me. So there's a whole nother way to do one. So that one's really pretty. And then here's this really darling little dainty one that I hung to put over by my carrots, actually. It's just all pink and purple. And then one little small clear on the bottom there. And I made this one doubled. So you can see, hopefully there. I know it's so hard to see, but I've got a double loop there. So there's that tiny, cute little darling one. And then I've got another blue, of course. I made, you know, a bigger loop. And this one, I did something totally different. Again, I crimped it all the way at the bottom. And I crimped it at the top. And I even used the silver disco balls. And these are darker navy metallic. You can't even see through these. But again, it doesn't matter because look how sparkly and shiny that is in the window. Right? Or even in the sun, it'll sparkle and shine. So just a variation of beads that you can use. And I used the little opaque square blue in between. It's really cute. And then this one is one of my favorites. And I made this one also doubled. I made a double loop on the top. And I used these pink crystal bicones. But then see what I did here? I crimped below my last bicone at the top here. So there's another variation. And then I use these beautiful beads. But they're not clear. But look at how they sparkle and shine. And then I use this really cool pink bead that you can kind of see through. And the clear, some more pink bicones. And then this really cool square. 2-hole drilled square crystal that I have. It's so beautiful. And then I put a little dangle at the bottom of that one. So there's another totally different variation. And this one goes 6 3/4 inches. So there's that one. So there's my happy spring, everybody. Aren't you guys excited? Don't you? Doesn't it make you want to make some? I mean, I'm just saying, they are so fun, and I'm so happy to do something fun on a blessed Sunday. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I